Hello, my dears, and welcome to this episode of Moms Who Pole. My name is Andrea, and I am your most average mom who polls. Today, I have the privilege of speaking with Kristen Nichole. She is known on the internets as the Polecologist. You can find her on Instagram, Polecologist, the Polecologist PhD, as well as her methodology and movement-based community called Polecology. So let's listen in. All right. Welcome. Thank you so much, Kristen, for meeting with me and talking with me today. How are you doing?
I am well. Thank you so much, Andrea. Is it Andrea or Andrea?
Andrea, but I like sounding fancy too.
Andrea, okay. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to talk.
Of course, I'm really excited that Ellie connected us because when I saw what you are doing and what your motivation is, I was so inspired to talk with you. So tell everyone who's listening a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Kristen Nichole. I am a pole artist, a dancer, a teacher, and I'm also a community and social psychologist.
That is so cool. And you are on Instagram as the Polecologist, yes?
You said it right. Oh my goodness. You would be surprised. Like a lot of people are confused. So I've had people say the poleologist. I've had people say pole ecology. But it's literally pole and psychology together, Polecology, and the Polecologist PhD is my Instagram handle.
I love that. So tell me a little bit about how you have blended the worlds of pole and psychology.
Yeah. So it all started when I was in school getting my PhD. I was super stressed out, super disembodied by the institution and the experience of really what it takes to get a PhD. So I found the pole community. A friend of mine and I both got matching Groupons for our New Year's resolution, January 2018. And we signed up. We went and we did classes for 6 months, and that was it. I had the unique experience of going through all of these psychological changes that helped me to, while I was getting my PhD in psychology, it just really naturally married with my psychology. So that's where Polecology was born because I began to see, like, wow, this is a creative outlet that's also what we call in psychology an adaptive coping mechanism, which really just means it's a positive way to cope with stress and anxiety and all the things in your life.
That's very interesting. So when you look at pole as an adaptive coping mechanism, I think a lot of people feel like, in layman's terms, that they feel like they have a more positive image of themselves and they feel more strength within them as they see the physical changes, maybe from just getting stronger from climbing up the pole.
That that as well, and also the experience of just choosing to go to a pole class as opposed to I'm just going to lay on the couch and watch Netflix in a dark room and not do anything and be disconnected from my body, be disembodied. It's a positive way to cope with the things that you're going through, a creative outlet, which is so important for adults because oftentimes what we see is as we develop as adults, there is a loss of play. You know, we're not going to the playgrounds like we did when we were kids. And it makes sense, right? We have responsibilities, we have families, we have to work. Um, and so a lot of that gets lost. And so, anecdotally, what I have found with my clients is this like, oh my God, like, look, I get to play. Like, going to the pole studio is akin to, for many people, going to the pole studio is akin to going to the playground and just having fun. And we all need that.
Absolutely. And like you said, when you get into play, there is that adaptive response, right? So you get to experience things, be innovative, to see, be curious what your body can do. And through that, you find that better connection to yourself. That is so cool. I love that about Pole. And I love that you're
Yes.
shining a light on it. One of the things that I noticed in your Polecology page in your community was that you highlight members and the really cool things that they're doing in other aspects of their lives and their polling. And I thought that was so neat and inspiring. I think you guys highlighted like a person who had just gotten their PhD, or someone that had achieved something, outside of pole, but pole is still a part of that.
Yeah, because please bear with me. I'm grabbing my cell phone charger.
You're fine.
But yeah, so my clients are human beings. They're people that are going through things, they have their own milestones. And so a big part of Polecology is we are a community. We are a community that supports people in their lives. And so if there's any milestone to celebrate or a person needs that support, we want to provide that by just honoring them, showering them with love and praise, and supporting them with resources.
That's fantastic. So I did see as well, you are a mom.
I am a mom to a toddler. I have a 4-year-old.
That must be so exhausting.
Hey, right? Like it's like when people find out or learn that you're a mom, you can always tell if the other person is a mom or not by how they respond. A person who is not a parent, they're going to be like, "Oh my god, so cute. Wow." Other moms are going to be like, "You must be tired. How do you do it? Are you okay? Is it coffee? Is that the secret ingredient?" But yes, I love my daughter so much. I am exhausted, but I I'm also like enjoy in finding so much pleasure in raising her in a very like creative way. So we really this also helps mom tip helps with the exhaustion is to uh remember that play is really important in the connection, especially when the child is so young. Like, just play together. Things don't have to be so rigorous. I know when I was younger, my mom was very like rigorous with me. Like, we did like academic activities all the time, even when I was like 4. But with my daughter, I just play with her a lot. We draw, we dance, we color, we rest. I really try to just kind of like create a safe space of like love and peace and joy with her. And that makes it less exhausting because I'm not thinking to myself, "Oh, I got to make sure she does this, 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 and this." I'm just like, let me connect with my daughter. And that connection can look different depending on the day. Maybe sometimes we're sitting down chilling. Maybe we're like actually going out and doing activities, but it's all love.
I felt that stress a lot with my daughter. She's my older child, and constantly thinking about, is this activity benefiting her academic growth, or and I think part of that for me really centered around, it was important for me to raise a strong woman. And so I was constantly treating every moment with her as future grown up version, almost like trying to heal myself, maybe. But then with my son, because I have no idea what it's like to grow up into a man, I experience him as a little boy. And it's somewhat easier to live in the moment with him. And I know that's terrible, but I recognize now that I had that bias, where one child is constantly being pushed towards the future and the other one I'm existing in the moment with a little bit more. But it was easier to kind of come, like you said, creating a space of peace, creating time just for play. I read, I forget where I had read it, but they said that children, when children say like, "Mommy, can you play with me?" It's their way of verbalizing that they have feelings that need to be like heard or understood, or they need comfort. And so when they say, "Mommy, can you play with me?" Stop and play with them, because it's the only tool they have to communicate that they need emotional support.
Exactly. And that is why, and I learned that myself as well. Because my daughter does that all the time. Mommy, can you play with me? Mommy, can you play with me? And even if I'm tired, I will still play with her. Even if sometimes I'll be laying on the couch playing with her, like playing dolls or whatever she wants to do. And I'll tell her, Mommy's tired. You know, mommy's a grown up. Mommy has a lot of responsibilities. And so I'm tired. I'm going to play from the couch. Is that okay with you? Yeah, because she just wants to connect. But absolutely, in my daughter's play, especially with the dolls that she plays with and the Lego pieces, like I learned so much about her thinking, her emotions. Also, I teach her through play. She's learning how to be social. She's learning how to express herself. She's learning so many things that can be incorporated in play. Play is so important for young children. Um, when I was in college, I used to work at a school for like a preschool that was like NACI certified. It's like the National Association for the Young Child, um, more or less. And it was focused on play. That's literally what they did all day. And through play is how children develop. So, yeah.
Absolutely. And it's so important. I think one of the things that I really loved about Pole was it allowed me to lead by example. Mom is doing something for herself. Mom is doing something for her physical and mental health. And it is play. It is fun. She's having a good time. And by demonstrating that, you're setting an example. And it doesn't have to be pole, but for me, it's pole. I mean, it could be running, it could be yoga, but for me, it's pole. And then you're able to lead by example and help show your children that it's okay to play, to prioritize your health. You don't need to be, you don't need to be another cog in the machine. Like, your needs
Mm.
matter.
Yeah, exactly. I agree.
Awesome. Well, I want to know then, because I think you've been polling now for what, 5 years? So did you poll while pregnant?
I did.
How was that?
Oh my goodness. I pulled up until I believe month 7. And that's when my body just couldn't do it anymore. So I rested. It was it was fun. It was also very challenging. I began to feel my center of gravity change and a little bit of disembodied because that's when I became a mother and I began to form that identity while she was inside just through the physical changes. But I'm glad that I did it and kept that connection.
Yeah. Did you feel like, I guess when you hit month 7, I think that's when a lot of people, myself included, you start to slow down because your body can't do things that your brain thinks it can do. Um, and you're shifting more towards looking at supporting a life outside of your body. And I think that with it comes a certain shift in perspective. So when you came back to pole postpartum, what was that like?
That was so challenging. I had to do postpartum physical therapy for 6 months before I could pull again because my baby was big for my body. She was 8 pounds and I'm 5'1". So have it. Yeah. Yeah. I was all belly. There's still probably some pictures on Instagram. But I did experience diastasis recti, which I still have. I can feel it sometimes. But the postpartum physical therapy was so helpful for me to reconnect with my deep core muscles. And I'm so grateful for that.
Did you feel like you had to advocate a lot for yourself to get into physical therapy, or was this something that, your medical team was aware of and they're like, you're going to go?
No, not at all. I found it myself because I could feel like that there was something off. I love research. I do research in my other life. So while I was pregnant, I was already researching these things and I learned a little bit about it. And so once I had my baby and I was ready to get back into it, I could tell that I had it. I could feel it because I have a very strong body awareness and connection to my body. Um, so I advocated for myself. I found it myself and I pursued it. But I think that doctors, the medical team involved in prenatal care, postpartum care should definitely advocate for that. But from my experience, it wasn't.
Yeah. And I think that's really unfortunate. I had a similar experience where you're working so hard to care for a baby and you you don't always have the mental and physical capacity to advocate for yourself when you're trying to keep a tiny human alive. And so you're hoping that the medical team that's with you is going to be able to recognize signs and symptoms and be able to point you in the right direction.
Yeah,
Well,
we're not there yet.
so tell me a little bit about, because I know this is a topic that's really important to you. Tell me a little bit about postpartum dancing and embodiment postpartum. Tell me a little bit about that.
I'll start with my own experience. So when I had my daughter, my body changed. Diastasis recti was in one way in which my body changed. Also psychologically, I would really struggled with like a disconnection between the self that I thought that I was before I had my baby, and then this new self postpartum. I've always been a very sensual person, and that kind of like became more dormant when I had my baby, right? Because she's the priority now and I'm acclimating and we're acclimating to each other. So it makes sense that there would be a transition. And I think that when I began to pole again after having my daughter, it was like being a pole baby all over again. And I appreciated that after I stopped feeling sad because I lost, because for me, it was like I lost something, I lost myself. But as I began to just approach this as a rebirth, as like a new beginning for me, I began to see like there is no loss. I'm transforming into another version of myself. And I think that we're always shaped by our experiences and we will always become different versions of ourselves, better, hopefully. And this was definitely that for me. And so pole was pivotal. I began to develop body awareness again. I began to really play with freestyle after having my daughters. When my freestyle journey just really took off, and I began to really want to play with embodying textures in my movement and exploring themes like sensuality or natural elements. And then what's new to me now is I'm really fascinated with the idea of like juxtaposition. So, like these opposing, for instance, one of my workshops that I teach is called Opposites Attract. And it's all about in pole, we have like this push pull technique, which is often like the grip that is used to like basically help to affix you to the pole and help you to do transitions and things around as you orbit around the pole. And so I love to marry these like opposite ideas together in my movement to just kind of like explore how like opposites come together to help us to embody and to be more fluid around the pole. So all of that happened after I had my baby, as I became this different version of myself. And I'm just grateful.
A transformative process. Do you have anything like that in your online community that speaks to that process? If someone is going through that postpartum process where maybe they are grieving the loss of their former selves, what resources might be available to them?
Yes. So my podcast, I have all of my early work, and that's my audio recordings, which is a podcast, really can be considered like mini lectures, honestly. In addition to pole tutorials, flexibility tutorials on my Patreon page. My Patreon page is like a museum that holds all of my archive work, which people still love to learn from and listen to and reflect on. But I do have several audio recordings that people can listen to. One of them is all about body image, and another one is broadly, that's really popular, is this idea of reclaiming yourself. And I mentioned my experience postpartum in that recording.
I love that. I have a question. Actually, I have two questions. So my first one being more about the mechanism of, your Patreon. You refer to your work as a museum, an archive work. How do you feel when you go back and you look at these previous recordings that you've done?
Wow, that's a really good question. I do this often, not even just with like my archive work on like Patreon, but also in my phone, because our iPhones like to remind us that we have to delete things. And I'm like very rebellious. So I'm always like, no. I have to hold on to memories. But I feel when I look back at my early work, I feel like I learn something new from it every time. I pay attention to something different every time. And I also think about the place that I was in that time, and I I feel so much appreciation because I started my Patreon at a time in my life that was so incredibly difficult. Um, I was getting my PhD. I had a new baby, and I was just like, "Oh my God, this is a lot." And so in many ways, like creating my work was an outlet for me that I wanted to share with my community. And it transformed me, and it continues to transform me as I go back and I view. And it makes me a better teacher. As I think about the programs that I want to develop and the work that I want to continue now. Right now, I'm in the space of networking, building community in real life. Like I do pop up workshops now, and I travel and I connect with people, dancers that have become friends on Instagram. And we just dance together, we teach together, and we have a good time. So, all of that, the archive work and the in person work I'm doing is informing something greater.
I love that you use your past to drive you forward. That's really, really cool and really self-aware and positive. I'm in awe of that.
Thank you.
So when someone is going to your Patreon to look at some of your previous works, like you said, reclaiming your body, reclaiming your sense of self, when you go out and you're doing your traveling workshops, is there a lot of that's driving the movement? You talked a little bit about the push and pull, opposites attract. Is that perhaps the underlying purpose of these workshops?
Yes. So, speaking of going back into archives and learning from the past, I've developed a methodology, and that is how I teach my workshops. So, first we ground, and then we work on skill development, we train, and then we work on building sequences, right? Because this is how our bodies learn how to move. We first kind of have to get familiar with new shapes or skills or techniques like push and pull and the opposites attract. And then as we revisit and we repeat and build sequences where the patterns that connect can kind of like be repeated over and over in our bodies so that they can like live there, then we have developed a language that we can speak with our bodies. And that's when I like to incorporate freestyle prompts, which I started doing last year to help dancers to find their own voice in their movement, right? Because when we peel back the textures, take away the emotion that we see in the movement of people that we really like admire, what we're really seeing is maybe three, like a sequence of three movements that is just stylized through their own identity, their own style, and their own textures that they're embodying. So that is my methodology. And the biggest part of that is the grounding that I do beforehand. And this is to help build body awareness. This is also to help with the transition from like wherever you came from before you got into this workshop. We're here now. We're going to be more present and mindful and aware so that our bodies can really work for us and we can explore and be creative and have a good time.
That's such a good point, especially speaking to grounding and talking about building movement like a language, because nothing is more terrifying, I think, to a brand new pole student than at the end of the choreo, the instructor going, now let's freestyle.
Oh, it's like, what? No, I actually like teaching freestyle to beginners. The first time I did it, I was just kind of like, ooh, because I have a workshop that I teach with other instructors. It belongs to all of us. It's called Bend and Flow. And Bend and Flow is the integration of like the yoga instructor that I work with, she teaches yoga. But when I teach the bending part, I teach a very embodied flexibility flow. And then it combines that, either of those two, with a freestyle dance class, which when I first did that, taught that with another instructor, I was like, ooh, we have some beginners in here. This is a little, but I've come to find out that if done in a way that is like encouraging and very hands-on and very, you have to give a lot of examples, I think it can be a different approach to pole for someone's first pole class to be completely freestyle, because it's like you're fine, especially if you're someone that has very low sense of body awareness, you're discovering so much about how your body moves. And so in many ways, it's like a pretest. And then as they develop in their pole journey and they do take classes heavy on technique, they do learn pole shapes and skills. And then they start doing freestyle some more, revisiting. If you do a post test, maybe like in a year, it's like, wow, maybe I'm hoping what we see is these are some of the movements that my body just naturally did. And now I have a language and I can understand and I'm more aware of how to do that now.
I love that. It's very intuitive. It's like intuitive movement. When you have a brand new pole person, it's almost like they have no frame of reference, right, for their movement. So they're just going to do what feels good in their bodies. Whereas if you have what you already know to be correct in pole, now you're trying to layer freestyle onto what you perceive to be correct and perhaps might have trouble finding the cues of what works for you and drawing out your own personal movement patterns. I think that's really interesting. I did see the bend and flow. I was really curious about it because I saw that bend and flow happens in a lot of different locations and it happens with different people. Are you present at all of the bend and flow workshops, or is it someone else? I was curious. I couldn't quite figure it out.
I'm finding the light. There we are. So I started off with Bend and Flow teaching with a friend. And since then, it has evolved into passing this workshop along to other instructors. And so, no, I'm not present at all of them. Everyone is taught differently because I like for instructors to teach in ways that are authentic to themselves. And I think that makes it more beautiful. It's like you can go to 3 bend and flows and not one of them are going to be the same. You're going to get something different from every single one of them. So yeah, like I have instructors that I work with that are teaching bend and flow in Brooklyn. And I'm going out to Los Angeles to teach with a pole friend. And this is my first time going to Los Angeles to teach. So good times. Like I'm just excited to share and to learn because I learned so much from teaching too.
That is so exciting. I'm going to selfishly ask that you guys come to New Orleans sometime so I can experience the workshop.
Absolutely. You're in New Orleans. Okay, I'll keep that in mind because I see California, Andrea. So I just thought you were in California.
Yeah, well, I'm manifesting my return to California.
Yes.
I'm a military spouse, so we move around a lot, but my home is California. And, we're getting close to the end. This whole lifestyle is going to be over soon. So I want to go
Oh,
back.
yay. Okay. Well, when I get there, I will definitely say hi to California for you. I'll tell them, I'll send your regards.
Yeah. Well, and that's how I got into pole, was this need for something that was myself, right? So all of what I had been doing for a while was tied to my spouse's career and his
Mm,
community. And I wanted a place, I wanted something where I could just be. I don't know how else to describe it, as I just needed to be myself and not feel judged or anything for it, because I can be a little irreverent at times, at the wrong times,
yeah.
in a highly structured organization. So that's how Pole came up, and I've loved it. I've loved every minute of it, and I really hope that we'll be able to come back to California at some point. So that's why it's California. But yes, right now I'm in the
Yes.
South. I'm in the suburbs. There's no pole studio very close to me. The nearest one is in New Orleans, but I'm in the suburbs, so I'm a lot further away. But yeah, when you guys come out, I will make the drive.
Yes. All right. I will keep that in mind. New Orleans. Woo.
Yeah. Well, that's really cool. All the stuff you're doing is super cool. What is next for you? Is it more bend and flow? What do you see happening for Polecology in the future?
So I have a lot of plans for the future, but in the present, I have evolved in my timeline for myself because I'm definitely a planner. A smidget type A from grad school. I inherited that, but I'm mostly more of a in the moment, things change, timelines adjust type of person, and so I've come to find that I am not completely ready to devote myself to teaching at this time. This is why I like doing pop-up workshops because I'm traveling, I'm networking, I'm still learning. And I feel that like when I am, because I am getting to that place of like teaching as a full-time thing because I really love it. Um, I want to be completely focused on my students and not just on myself. So right now I'm still in that place of like developing as an artist, as a dancer. So I want to get back into performing this year. I want to co-teach with instructors more and dance with instructors more, learn, create together. But I do have like ideas for programming in the future that I can share with the pole community, um, and ways to like memorialize my ideas and share them with the pole community and beyond. But stay tuned because I'm really excited about all of these things. And I can't wait to like just grow in my art and in my pedagogy of teaching as well.
That's so exciting. So we can stay tuned on Polecology on Instagram, and then your personal growth as Polecologist PhD on Instagram. Yes.
Yes, thank you so much.
Of course. I'm going to ask you a couple questions. I do ask this every time I get a new person on here. So
Okay.
you've got a PhD, you've got a kid, you've got your pop-up workshops and a full-time career. That's a lot. So what happens when it gets to be too much, when maybe it's a little overwhelming? What's the first thing to go?
Well, I my career in research is actually part-time. Woo. So that's like that was a project of this year that I needed to like put, some boundaries around. So that was the first thing to kind of like not go, but like I definitely had to take on less responsibility so that I could lean into my creativity. So I would say that. Yeah,
Nice.
because I think that sometimes in life we always have to make choices, right? And sometimes we have to choose between our passions, maybe pursuing a project, a business that might be scary, or the comfort zone. And I think for me, research is my comfort zone. And My business in Polecology is my passion. It's my work. And so I'm leaning into that.
I love that. That is awesome. What advice would you have for any moms out there that are looking at pole thinking, should I do it?
Mhm.
What would you say to them?
Yes. Yeah, not like a yes, like a yes, you should do it and you can do it. Like you can, that's the biggest thing, efficacy. Like you have the ability to do it. And I would suggest that they support independent artists. Like there's many of us that offer um, teaching and learning experiences. There's like a full spectrum of learning experiences. There's the pop-up style, there's people that teach more regularly. I recommend that you learn from as many people as you possibly can and treat it as if you were in school, like in college, like learning from different people so that you can develop your own thoughts and your own voice. It's much in the same way as dance is a language that you're learning. And just have fun. Have a lot of fun.
I love that. Last question for you. What advice do you have to any pole dancers out there that are new moms or are about to become moms?
Oh my goodness. Okay. You embrace where you are right now. This liminal space of being in between. Um, Shout out to my friends Sammy Picone and Cami Arbolis for that idea of like understanding liminal spaces. They've talked about that a lot. But this is a really great experience for you. And you're in a unique position of like just kind of being in between, like the you before you had your baby and the you after you had your baby. And trust and know that this new you is going to be a better, more evolved you because we're always moving in the direction of like, this is our trajectory. We're always moving forward and onward. So there's no loss. You're just becoming something more.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Such great advice. Thank you so much, Kristen, for chatting with me today. Just wonderful information that you've given to us. I really hope, I have my fingers crossed, that there's going to be a Bend and Flow workshop near me. If not, people can find it on your links on either of your Instagram pages, right?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for chatting with me today. And I am sure we will talk again soon. I'm going to have to pick your brain about so many more things.
Yes, please. Let's have like a virtual coffee date.
Oh, that'd be so fun. Okay, sounds good, my dear. Thank
All
you so
right.
much. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode, my friends. If you enjoyed today's episode, please feel free to give us a big thumbs up, 5-star, like, subscribe, depending on what modality you happen to be listening in on. Check out the show notes below for ways that you can support this podcast, which is currently fueled by copious amounts of afternoon coffee by yours truly and a passion for supporting women in their pole and movement journeys. Until next time, my friends, keep on dancing and remember there's enough spotlight for all of us to shine.